Hello, hello, hello. So I am creating this video specifically for people who are interested in becoming an EMDRIA approved certified therapist, as well as who may be interested in utilizing me as their approved consultant through that process. I think it's really important to know more about the consultant that you're thinking about using to help you through the certification process. Because you're going to be spending lots of time with them. So I wanted to create a video specifically for people who are interested in working with me so that you can learn a little bit more about kind of my style, my story, kind of how I do things, fees associated, what that process looks like, just the lowdown on everything. Because I think sometimes there's confusion about how all this works. So I want to just kind of walk you through kind of what that looks like specifically and also just in terms of working with me. All right. By the way, my name is Jessica Crunkleton. I'm an EMDRIA approved EMDR basic trainer for EMDR consulting. I am also an EMDRIA approved consultant, an EMDRIA certified therapist, licensed marriage and family therapist, licensed clinical professional counselor. I'm a whole bunch of stuff. So that's a little bit about me from that part. In terms of the EMDR certification process, traditionally, I would say it takes usually about a year or so for most people to do it, just on average, if I was to give it an average. So you are required to complete kind of the way it works once you finish your basic training. Now, it does have to be an EMDRIA approved basic training in order to go on to become an EMDRIA approved certified therapist. So you have to complete your EMDRIA approved basic training, and then the next step would be certification. I have been asked, is there like a test between the two? No, there isn't. So or application between the two? No, it's just like, okay, I've completed my EMDRIA approved basic training. I've got my certificate of completion. Now I want to go on and get certified. So you reach out to the consultant that you're interested in working with. You all discuss things. If they have availability, if it's a good fit, then you all agree. There's a contract that gets signed between the two of you, and you start working on that process. So a lot of this is pretty similar to your basic training process with just a few differences. So in general, you have to complete at least 20 hours of consultation. Now, this is I'm creating this video February the 18th, 2026, right? So things may change in the future, but as of today, right, that's what it is. So you have at least 20 hours of consultation. That's kind of the biggest one that takes a while to do. So 20 hours of consultation. The hours that you did, if you did, I know for ours, you have 10 hours of consultation that are included in the basic training. Those hours don't count for certification. So it's not like I got 10 there and I just need 10 here. That's the basic training. And I'm going to actually add the pyramid to this so that you can see you have the bottom part, which is the basic training, right? The next step up is certification. Totally different process, level of specialty. So it's 10 hours there, that goes there. That doesn't count for certification. So another 20 hours, at least 10 of those hours must be individual. So working one-on-one with the consultant, working through cases, discussing things, that sort of thing. Then the other 10 can be group. But you could also have some people that do like all 20 individual, and they don't mind paying a little extra, because they like that individual time, right? So totally up to you kind of how you decide to do that, but at least 10 of those hours must be individual. Now, that doesn't mean automatically if you do 20 hours, boom, you're going to get certified. Because it could be that you do the 20 hours and the consultant feels like you don't know what you need to know, and they don't feel comfortable moving forward with submitting and saying, hey, this person knows their stuff. And this is where I think that communication piece comes in, where you'll want to have conversations. The consultant will have conversations with you along the way. Hey, I feel like you're really good here. I would like to see you learn more about blocking beliefs. I would like to see you learn more about kind of how to do phase 1, phase 2. There's some issues there. Like usually there's conversations had along the way so that you all are on the same page, okay? So 20 hours of consultations, and then you have to do 12 CEs, advanced training. They must be EMDRIA approved, heavy on the EMDRIA approved, right? So there are lots of advanced trainings out there, but if it's not an EMDRIA approved, advanced training is not going to count for certification. Also, you have to be independently licensed in your state of practice, right? in your area before you can be certified. So I have several people who are an associate license right now, and that's fine. They can work on certification, but they can't like submit everything, turn it in, and be certified until they have that licensure in their hand, right? You're not going to be able to finish that next step until you get that done. So 12 hours of CEs, you have to have your licensure, independent licensure to practice, 20 hours of consultation. You have to see at least 25 clients for at least 50 hours of EMDR sessions. That's usually the kind of the easier one. The big one that kind of gets people is those 20 hours of consultation, because it takes a while to kind of get through those. Also, 2 of your buddies are going to write letters saying, hey, such and such knows their EMDR stuff. They're a great clinician. So, and then whoever does your consultation, usually people are working with like 1 or 2 consultants. If I can, sometimes I prefer to just do the group and the individual, so that I know when I'm signing off, I know that they know everything because I taught them a certain way, right? All of us, I think we kind of do things a little bit different. At this current time, I am actively an EMDRIA approved trainer, consultant. And so I kind of teach in that approach. Okay. So I kind of teach it this way, but there are lots of ways to kind of do the same thing, to the ways to address children or addiction or blah, 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 all these different things. Right. But sometimes if I can, I like to kind of do all of it because I have a certain style that I like to kind of the way things are done. Okay. But that's something you would need to talk to your consultant about, kind of how they feel about that. If you want to do, let's say 10 with them, 10 with somebody else, or however you want to, that's something you'd want to talk to them about. Again, I'm not opposed to splitting some things up, but it would have to be, we have an agreement, we're all on the same page. Okay. The other thing, whoever does your consultation, they're going to write a letter and say, hey, such and such knows their stuff. And, they did this amount of hours with me, this amount of group, this amount of individual. And I feel comfortable in saying that I would recommend them for certification. You're going to submit all this along with when you do your 25 clients for at least 50 hours, you will get that statement notarized. I believe they still notarize that. You're going to turn all that in. It's a way you go into the EMDRIA website and do this. Now, once you go to submit all this, I believe if you're a member of EMDRIA, the fee is lower. It costs a bit more. So really, it makes sense to just go ahead and become an approved, not approved consultant, to join EMDRIA, because I believe the fee is a bit lower versus if you're not a member of EMDRIA. So just something to think about. I believe it's about $250. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's about that much if you're a member of EMDRIA. So you turn all that in, the consultant's letter, all your stuff, your EMDRIA approved basic training certificate completion, all this stuff has to be submitted in the system. And then within about a week or so, if everything's on point, you will become an EMDRIA certified therapist, right? And then you renew like every 2 years. Again, these standards may change in the coming years. This is where they're at as of February 18th, 2026. Now, let's talk a little bit about specifically kind of how I do things, that sort of thing. So in terms of mine, I enjoy doing the basic training. I have literally helped thousands of people through the basic training process. It's something I'm really proud of. I enjoy that. But I often get people who are like, oh man, I love your sand tray and I love your work with couples or with kids or with these different populations. I'd really like to learn more about it. I really like to get deeper in that. And I'm always encouraging people to like keep going on. So as much as I love the basic training, I also love that deeper study, those smaller groups, so we can really get into the nitty gritty of things. And so I really enjoy teaching. And so I really have an educator's heart. I'm very, I'm an advocate. I did my basic training in 2017 in Northwest Indiana, and there was about 16 of us. I was the only person of color in the room. I am neurodivergent. That's something to know about me. As also as a person of color, I identify as African American. I also identify as queer. We didn't talk about any of those things really in the basic training. And I deal a lot with clients with complex trauma and those other things and a lot of other stuff. And I walked away from the basic training, feel like this is amazing, amazing. Although I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't want to mess people up. I don't want to cause their brains to fall out. So it took me like a year or so to really just get comfortable with doing EMDR, kind of diving in that way, because, again, I think representation matters. Not having kind of the symbolic, like, people representation in that space, anyone in the book, anyone from the videos that look like me or those who I served or any of those things brought up, kind of made me hesitant to, move forward in it. That has changed now. Um, Now I'm an MDRIA approved as a shared trainer. And one of the cool things that I'm really proud of is that I have a video in our basic training with me working with Roy Kiesling, kind of going through the EMDR process, and people get to see me actually process, like, it's real processing. And I've had a lot of people who have shared that video was really cool to see a person of color processing like racial trauma type issues and being so open and fun. And I use like a Chanel bag as my container. It's a whole vibe. Like, I just really, it was fun to do it. I learned a lot from it. And so I really love to give back, to give of myself to, I think my word is authenticity, and really showing up as my whole self, unmasking. And that's what I really teach is, when you come to my basic training, if you come to an advanced training, if you do certification with me, CIT, any of that, I really want, my hope is for you to show up and be your whole self, be comfortable to say, hey, I don't understand this. I'm a little nervous here, blah, blah, blah. And let us go into that. Also, I teach from really looking at like race, culture, identity. I would say that's something that's really specific about kind of how I teach that may be different from some others, because of the various identities that I hold and who I serve. All those things are important. So when I teach case consultation, when I do case consultation, I do it a very specific way where we're taking all these pieces into consideration as we're moving forward. As well, I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, as well as a licensed professional counselor. So I have like these dual kind of things happening, but it's really cool because we are looking at diagnoses and things like that, symptomology, all those pieces. But I'm also looking at family systems and larger systems and power and control, and kind of whole. So we look at about like 5 or 6 different things in a case consultation at the same time. And that's how I teach. So even if you don't come from a family systems background, or you haven't had a lot of that cultural pieces, or even some of the play therapy, I'm also a play therapist. I am a registered SAN therapist, consultant, trainer. So I also bring that into my consult, especially if I know that I have people who are really interested in that. That's something I totally love bringing in, or just how do we be more flexible in administering this. I know in the basic trainings, a lot of this is, unless you go to like a kid focused one or school focused, is more specifically for adults, right? But what if you work with teens, or you're working with couples, or you're working with neurodivergence? That's another one of my specialties. um, you have to be thinking modification, because it's not going to just show up like it is for just some of the adults, right? So that's something that I also teach, right? And so really encouraging clinicians to um, be creative, be flexible, be comfortable with the uncomfortable, right? And just kind of settling in that, as well as I am also certified in brain spotting and do other forms of therapy too. So we talk a lot about integration. How might you integrate this with IFS or play therapy or brain spotting, or what might that look like? What might an interweave look like here with a couple or a family or an individual? What about blocking beliefs, right? Secondary gain. So I'm teaching all these different things at the same time. And so I think those are some of the unique things about kind of the way I teach it. So typically when people in the certification process, yes, you're going to have a good foundation for infidelity to the model. You're going to know the 8 phases, because I'm going to make sure you know it. You're not going to leave unless you know it. I'm not going to sign off. And you're going to know the 8 phases. You're going to know how to do cognitive interweaves. You're going to know about blocking beliefs. You're going to leave with more confidence and competence. Typically, as people, I have someone now, she's getting towards like hour 16, hour 17. And one of the things I noticed at the end of our call, she'll start saying things like, well, today in takeaways, this is what I'm taking away. Like, she's kind of starting to lead. And that's because that's the way I've trained her throughout. So she knows how to do case consult. She knows how to dive in. She kind of knows this. And then I offer suggestions along the way, and then knowing how to, okay, what are next steps? So the other thing I would say that's really cool about me, I kind of have this I'm known in the field as the resource queen. So one of the things about my consultation calls, whether it be basic training, certification, just a one-on-one, whatever you're doing with me, you're going to leave with some resources. I'm someone who comes from poverty. And so it's always been important to me to know about resources because that's how you survive. And each one teach one. And so I've always been of the mindset, if I have something, that's also, I'm Southern, I'm from the South, and we just tend to be givers. And so not only do I want to share information with you, but I want to get resources in your hand because you can take in what I'm saying. I'm a visual learner, auditory and things as well. So show me visual, show me graphics, give me something that I can use with this kiddo in session. Give me something that I can follow. Maybe we go do some other things too, but can you give me some guidance there, something I can read on, a book or something you can share with me that can help me, or something I can use with parents or use in many ways. And so I'm great about, because I have a lot of connections in the field and I'm always constantly like, last week I was training on some play therapy stuff. Next week I'm going to like all play, which is like neurodivergent affirming play therapy. And I'm going to get certified in that, right? I'm constantly training. So not only am I an EMDR basic trainer, but I'm also working towards becoming a registered play therapist. And this neurodivergent affirming work is something that's very important to me. So I'm always thinking about, how do I make this work for the person in front of me? How do I come at this from a culturally affirming lens, trauma informed, not looking at cases? I started out my career, I think a lot of this comes from, I started my career out in Northwest Indiana. So I'm working with DCS juvenile probation. And I'll be upfront, I did not want that job. I was an LMFTA and an LMHCA, but really I always say the LMFTA first, the LMFT part first, because that's how I'm trained classically. Usually, traditionally, they work in private practice, nice cushy offices, right? You know, that's where I thought I was going to go. But when you're in Indiana, Arkansas lets you work on your own. Indiana was like, you have to work under somebody else and then you can go out and do on your own. So I was forced to, as a result, go work, do agency work, but it actually turned out to be the best thing ever because I'm in Northwest Indiana in like 6 counties, from Michigan City all the way, Gary, Maryville, Crown Point, Rensselaer, Lafayette, all the way up to Indianapolis and beyond. Sometimes it depends, right? So when you're working in all those places, you learn a lot. You learn all the court systems. You learn about, so I'm well versed in domestic violence, sexual abuse, and a bunch of other things. You learn about working with systems, schools, all this kind of stuff, right? So because of that background, I have that embedded, and it's something that I utilize in consult. Because of my background, I also have experience. I work with the Drug Enforcement Administration. I'm an area clinician for our local DEA. And so I work with the DEA to provide employee assistance program services and crisis response for members of the DEA and their family members located around the world. That is part of my work that I'm very proud of. It's not something I can talk about a lot in terms of what I do from the confidentiality aspect, which a lot of that is confidential anyway, but specifically because of this. But one of the things I will say, part of the reason people come to me for consult also is because maybe they work with first responders, military, law enforcement. There isn't as many people that specialize in that area, or perhaps they do EAP or they want to get into some of that work. And that looks quite different than more of this long-term work. So I can teach long-term, short-term, kids, teens, adults, addiction. I'm also a certified alcohol drug abuse counselor. And honestly, I think a lot of these things flow together because you might have a case where there's addiction involved, there's sexual abuse or domestic violence, or there's anxiety and PTSD. Rarely do we find that it's just like one thing. It's often a lot of things going on. And so my goal in certification, I guess, and wrapping up, I would say, is really to help people to look at a case, right, to expand their mind. And I would also say to look at a case, like to have that eye, but to look at it not just like just this one little spark, but to zoom out. Let's look at it from this angle, that angle, this angle, really unpack it from all these different aspects. And it gives us like more of a broader clinical landscape. And I think it really helps to build that confidence and competence. And so I'm really proud of this work and helping so many people. In terms of fees, let's get into that. So I charge $100 an hour for certification, which is for individual. I try to make it reasonable. I definitely could charge a lot more, especially because I'm an approved consultant, trainer, all those things. But I want to make it affordable as best I can. And I charge $50 an hour for certification group. Now, if you are there's something called the Upside program, which I am a consultant for. It's through EMDRIA. They offer it twice a year. So the program is open from February the 15th, I think, through March the 15th. It's kind of like a grant-based thing or support, and they'll help pay for some of the costs for certification or CIT. I do accept that, and I have several people going through that right now. So if you are thinking about doing that, it used to be called the RESI program. Now it's called Upside. So that's available out there. Definitely something I would encourage. But even if you don't do that, like I said, it's $100 for individual and $50 for group. Again, those prices may change in the future, but for right now, that's where we're at. Okay. So I think we've kind of squared away all that sort of thing. Oh, yes. And then again, typically it's going to take about a year-ish, depending, to do it. That's kind of where it is right now. I can meet with people, some people we meet every other week. I have one person we're meeting every week sometime. I usually try to meet at least twice a week with all the consultant people I'm working with. So at least they're doing at least one individual and one group, but we might be doing a lot more than that, right? Just because I want to touch base and kind of make sure I'm really big in fidelity to the model. So it is the expectation, if you're doing this, that you are going to be following the 8 phases. If you do decide to deviate, if I ask you, okay, why did you decide to do standard versus restricted or contained processing? You should be able to tell me why you use this one instead of that one. I think the other thing about the way that I teach this, because I am a trainer with EMDR consulting, I teach through the processing continuum. So standard, contained, restricted, and then there's smaller version fragment. And so we kind of talk about what those look like, kind of how that shows up for cases, whether we're going bottom up, or top down in processing. So I talk about all these things. And as we talk about cases, what you decide to use. Why did you decide to go top down versus bottom up? Did you use the DES with this case? Do they need more phase 2 stuff? Like, these are things that we talk about, like very real, kind of just, kind of getting into things. So I would say those are some things about me. Again, if you have any questions, concerns, you can always email me, Jessica Crunkleton, EMDR@gmail.com. That's JESSICA CRUNKLETON, EMDR@gmail.com. I can also be reached on many social media platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook. I don't do as much Instagram, but email and some other ways you can totally reach me. All right. Hope to hear from you soon. Bye-bye.